Vitamin K2 takes calcium out of your arteries and into your bones, but you need to know what you're doing. Here's the details. Vitamin K is a fat-soluble vitamin, and there are two types of vitamin K. There's vitamin K1 and vitamin K2. Now, when I went to school over 30 years ago, there was no vitamin K2. It really wasn't talked about or wasn't discovered at the time. We only learned in nutrition about vitamin K1 and its role in blood clotting. The important thing to understand is naturally where you get vitamin K1 from are leafy green vegetables. The vitamin K1 of those leafy green vegetables play a role in how well our body clots. If you cut your skin, the natural method by which our body heals itself is it forms a clot, and that is necessary to stay alive. Vitamin K1, if we eat a lot of leafy green vegetables, our body will have a greater capacity to do those clots. The problem is many people will form clots in their legs and their arteries and have blood clots that go to their lungs or their brain or their heart, and this can cause serious medical conditions, and thus that's why many people will be on medication like Coumadin. Because Coumadin thins out the blood and prevents clotting, you certainly would not want to be eating leafy green vegetables, and that's why if you're on a medication like Coumadin, you need to not eat certain foods that have vitamin K1. But now let's talk about vitamin K2. Vitamin K2 is important because it's really effective in helping our cardiovascular health. I will tell you in just a moment where to find vitamin K2 naturally in foods, but the important thing to understand is vitamin K2 helps remove calcium from our blood vessels to our bones. And the reason that's important is because when our arteries start to become calcified, they become very stiff, they become very non-compliant, meaning they cannot expand and are not very flexible, and this will raise your blood pressure. This will make your arteries extremely stiff and more prone towards cardiovascular disease. The reason why K2 is so important is because if you're pulling the calcium out of the arteries, you're going to make your arteries more compliant, more pliable, softer, greater ability to expand, and your blood pressure can go significantly down, reducing your cardiovascular risk. And research shows that many people are taking calcium supplements in an effort to try to improve their bones. But if you're taking a lot of calcium supplements, but you're not eating foods or supplementing with vitamin K2, then the calcium may start to build up in the arteries, and you're actually increasing your risk of cardiovascular disease by taking calcium supplements. And I'll put research down below in the description if you want to read further about this. Many people also are taking vitamin D3, and this is important for our bones. But vitamin D3 will help absorb calcium in our gut, as well as many other things that vitamin D3 does. But if you're absorbing the calcium in your gut into the bloodstream, but you're not delivering it to the bones, major problem, and that's the purpose of vitamin K2. So let's talk about the natural ways you can get vitamin K2 in your diet. There's actually two forms of vitamin K2, MK4 and MK7. MK4 is found in grass-fed animal products, such as egg yolks, beef, chicken, and dairy. But the MK7 version of vitamin K2 is found in fermented foods. Foods such as sauerkraut or natto. It's a Japanese fermented soybean. And what's interesting in Japan, because this is a common food, this natto, they don't have as much osteoporosis as the Western societies. They also have less cardiovascular disease. And the theory behind it is if their diet is high in vitamin K2, then they're not calcifying their arteries the way Westerners are. Now, of course, it would be nice to get a wide variety of K2, MK4, MK7 in our diet. But this largely depends upon whether you actually like the foods that have K2. And this is why supplementation can be beneficial for some people if you're just not into eating those foods. Because, for example, for me, sauerkraut, natto, these are not foods that I like at all. As healthy as they are, and I understand they're very healthy, I just can't personally eat them. Not because I don't think they're bad foods or anything. I can't take the taste. So the purpose of supplementation is to supplement your diet when you just can't eat the food. If you're going to choose between supplementation of MK4 or MK7, it would actually be better to supplement with MK7, and that's what I do because I do eat a lot of foods that have the MK4 version of K2. The average dose in the literature is between 90 to 200 micrograms per day. And so for me personally, because I do eat a lot of foods that have the MK4 in it, and my diet is fairly spot on, I'm going to say 80-85% of the time. I'm not perfect, and I exercise a lot, and I don't have type 2 diabetes, and I've had tests that show my heart is okay. I feel as though 90 micrograms is enough for me personally. However, if I was a person that had a lot of calcification of the arteries, I had a lot of cardiovascular disease, if I weighed twice as much as I do now and I didn't exercise, boy, I'm making a picture, aren't I? Yeah, I would take a lot more. I would almost double the dose of vitamin K2. And again, it's to pull that calcium out of the arteries and put into the bones. Especially if you had osteoporosis, for example, if you're a woman or even a man who has osteoporosis, very likely K2 is a component of that type of problem.